Hello and welcome. You're listening to Start Again with Shauna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Together, we will uncover your soul's truest desires. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Listen, today I'm introducing you to a new friend, Susan Gold. She has written a book that we are going to hear all about. It's called Toxic Family, Transforming Childhood Trauma into Adult Freedom. Cannot wait to hear about it, the process, the content of the book, all of the good stuff. Susan, thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Shauna, thanks for having me and for creating the amazing platform that you have. And I know most podcasts only go 6 to 7 episodes, so you're killing it in year 2 here.
Listen, we are talking about all the things and meeting amazing people. So we are just getting started here on this little podcast of mine. It is so lovely to meet you. And I love that one of my favorite things is to talk to new people. And I know that is, I was just having a conversation with some of my friends recently where they were like, please don't put me in a room full of strangers. Don't talk to me on an airplane. And I was like, what? People are fascinating. I love it. And I was like, oh, this is why I've been called to do this podcast because I find it endlessly fascinating. So tell us about you and your story and how you got to be an author.
Well, I'll put it in a nutshell. I come from a very chaotic upbringing. My father's a genius astrophysicist, but he had a little alcohol and addiction issue. And my mother had 5 kids before she was 30, and she
Oh,
self-soothed by overeating. And back then, they prescribed diet pills, which were straight speed.
yep.
So let's just say it wasn't a hotbed of mental health, and it wasn't a very safe dynamic. And I was very empathic, meaning I could
Mm.
walk in the room and I could tell you the temperature. And I was telepathic. I could even clearly discern the thoughts that were going on within people's minds until it became too uncomfortable to pick up on that information. And I shut it down very tight. But my dream was to get out of that family dynamic, family system, household as soon as possible. I used to watch Barbara Walters on my beanbag chair in my basement, and I wanted to go to New York and be just like her.
Yes.
So I left the morning after high school graduation. We
Oh,
graduated
wow.
on a Friday night, and I left Saturday morning at 7:45 in the morning and went to the Jersey Shore to work for the summer with my sister and then on to college. And by 19, I was living in Greenwich Village on my own in an internship in New York City and went there immediately after college. Ultimately, I became known for matching celebrities to brands.
Mm.
And Barbara Walters did appear in my story because my first job was working for a very glitzy international talent agency. And I wasn't making enough money on the side. So my side hustle was personal training, and Barbara became a client.
Oh, wow.
And one morning at 7 a.m., I rang her doorbell and she took one look at me and she said, Susan, get in here. What is going on with you? And she got it out of me within moments. I'd been sexually harassed in the workplace the day
Oh.
before. And she said, I'm coming to work with you this morning and we're going to confront this man together. And I'm like, yeah, Barbara, I'm going to be okay. I did confront that man that day. Barbara offered me an assistantship, and I said, I just can't be an assistant. And I opened my own talent brokerage firm at 25 in New York. I had a couple of months of cash in the bank. I was newly sober because the flags in my childhood started to surface in my own life. And I was lucky enough to see that and address it clearly. I had extricated myself from an abusive relationship where the man was holding the purse strings, and I didn't want to go back into that relationship. So I was determined to make this brokerage firm work. And by golly, it did. Like my first deal was knocking on the door of the factory and convincing Andy Warhol to do a commercial for Pontiac that he did not want to do. So that's a piece of what my life trajectory has been like, Shauna. And in 2007, I was encouraged by an Irish seer to write a book, that I had a book to write. And I quickly shoved that under the closest carpet. I
Yep.
did not want to go through writing a book for a PR tool. And then in 2020, back to back intuitives again told me, you have a book to write. It's going to help a lot of people. And the third intuitive told me, you have 3 books to write. You have a lot to say. So I thought, okay, before this turns into a library, Shauna,
Yeah.
I'm going to start writing. And my skill set in matching celebrities to brands led me into producing for television and film. And I took this on like a producer would a segment on a morning news show. I sat at the computer for 15 minutes a day, whether I had something to write or not. And I've been a bit of a control freak and bullied myself
Yes.
all the way along to reach that external success that I really preferred to come from the inside out, but I didn't understand that. And here I was doing it again, even though I was cognitive. So I finished the manuscript within 9 months, but I didn't feel that connected to the material, even though it's a very personal story and it's a taboo topic. I mean,
Hmm.
toxic family. How much more
Yeah.
taboo can you get? And that was not my title. It's my publisher's title, but we'll
Oh,
get to that,
interesting.
or maybe
Yes.
we
Yes.
won't.
Oh, no, I hope we will.
Um, okay. So, yeah, a very wise mentor and friend said, why don't you take another pass through the book from little Susie's point of view? That
Mm,
little light in your heart
yep.
that's walked this whole story with you. So I did, and that changed everything. It didn't change so much the black and white words of the manuscript, Shauna, but it changed how I related
Yep.
to my own humanity.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there is so much there that we could talk about. And, one of the first questions I ask, which I, for whatever reason, did not ask at the beginning of our little intro, was how you've embraced this idea of starting again, which you very eloquently have shared over and over and over. You have started again. I love that. And I also super, super love that you say exactly what I tell people when they say to me, how do you write a book? I want to write a book. I've got a story in me. How do I do it? And I've literally told them, if you have 15 minutes a day, you can write a book. And the fact that you did that specifically, I'm like, yep, example A. Like, that is amazing.
It's funny how there's always kismet and serendipity. I was looking
Yes.
forward to our conversation, but I had no idea we'd have so much in common right off the bat.
Yes. Yes.
And I haven't started thinking about book 2 because, supposedly there's 2 more to come.
Right.
I think the experience of 1, I'm still sort of reveling in and recovering from.
Yes. Yes.
I
There's
was,
both. There's both.
yeah,
I
I,
had a moment of finishing mine and just needing to take a beat. Like, I was like, this is great. And then there's the whole aspect of selling the book that comes next. Writing the book is the first challenge, but then you have to actually go out and market and sell your book.
so I had no illusions in that department. I mean, just being in media, I kind of understood the
Yep.
path ahead of me. And my expectations were very low, even though I was told this book is going to help many, and
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
book, this book, this book. I kept my expectations low. A friend is a New York Times best-selling publisher. Her label is TVG, and sheepishly, I sent her one of the early drafts. She read it over a weekend, and Monday morning texted and said, "I want to publish your book."
That's amazing.
So I got very lucky because self-publishing and me, maybe a long shot,
Yeah.
definitely need some hand holding through that. But that's when the title changed as well.
Yes,
She
let's talk
said,
about that.
yeah. So my title was Magical Illumination,
Mm.
Transforming Childhood Trauma into Adult Freedom, because that's what this journey has been for me. I mean, I did have to go through points of separation.
Mhm.
And I did have to do a lot of digging and a lot of different modalities of therapy, both literal talk and somatic, going into my body and exploring to be able to retell this story. And I didn't want to throw my family under the bus because I've come to understand for myself that they played their roles perfectly in my movie. I could not have been more suited to the place I was, the middle child of five within that family structure. It has served me. And that was really important for me to know. So it took about 2 weeks of processing this toxic family because I had to understand it took me a long time to get to the point of magical illumination. And it's going to reach the right people, the people that need it, with the title Toxic Family.
Yeah, and how did you feel when she first suggested this title to you?
Well, she didn't suggest it. It was her associate that did. And I thought, oh, great. Let's just get really Jerry Springer on each other. And my heart sunk to my toes because it felt sensational. And I didn't want to be a piece of that. I've done way too much producing on reality television.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen behind the veil, so to speak. But ultimately, I came to understand, yeah, that's the right title for the people that are in need of this book, for people that may be transformed by the
Mhm.
material. I think if it was called Magical Illumination and somebody picked it up, they would be stunned with the
Mm.
material because it's very honest. I tell my story very truthfully with integrity because I really want to help create conversation around a taboo topic. Because I believe we're carrying a lot of guilt and shame, Shauna, that does not belong to us. We're
Oh, it's
carrying it
so
in
true.
big bags. And
Yep.
it could be from 3 generations previous that I'm
Yep.
carrying this big bag of stuff. So I felt the conversation needed to be started. And yeah, it's really hurtful. My family was surprised, to say the least, by the title. But ultimately, it's created dialogue and ultimately, it's uncovered some of those hidden crevices that
Mhm.
have had to see light of day and get exposure for us to connect on a more authentic and deep level.
It's bringing up 2 things for me to hear you say that. First of all, I was going to ask, a lot of people, when they are going to write a story or feel called to write their story, they're instantly afraid of who in their family will read that. And what, you know, most people are not looking to hurt the people in their family, and so they wanna try to authentically tell their story in a way that feels true, but also in a way that doesn't harm their family members. So it's interesting to hear you say that it brought up some really important dialogue for you guys. I was going to ask, how your family responded to the book itself, not necessarily the title.
So they knew I was writing a book, but they didn't know anything about it. And I thought, okay, I can't write this book by committee. This is not a group think here. This
Yep.
is my experience. And just in speaking with my brothers and sister, I knew we all had a very different experience growing up in our family home. So I knew I had to write this for myself and from my own experience. And that's been pivotal. My sister said once she got through up to college, she was riveted. She couldn't put the book down. She had no
Oh,
idea
wow.
that I had suffered the pain that I did. My oldest brother, there's abuse between the two of us. His child is almost completely blacked out, Shauna. It's
Hmm.
so painful for
Hmm.
me. He has no clue. And the book shattered his construct. But he said to me, I am so proud of you.
Oh,
And
wow.
I am proud of the work you've done and your capacity to love.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
And now he's able to start to take a look at his history because he was wondering, he didn't really understand the emptiness,
Hmm.
the amnesia.
Yeah.
So a painful
Oh, sure.
touch point,
Yeah.
but poignant.
And you said something earlier about a crack, and it reminded me of this quote that keeps coming back to me, and is so perfect for this conversation. It says, "Everything has a crack in it. That's how the light gets in."
I think I want somebody to needlepoint me a pillow with that slogan on it.
Isn't that amazing? Like to realize that that's how the light gets in. Like that's where the good stuff starts. It's just a little crack. I that quote has it keeps coming back to me, and so it's super relevant to this conversation, which obviously I love those serendipitous moments. So my question to you now is, as you look back on this journey of your life and also the journey of writing your story, what do you think inspires you most about your story?
I have to say, I think it was the chapter about my divorce. And after I read it, it was in galley form. This is one of the final reads before there were no more reads. It was going to go to print. And I read that chapter and I found myself saying, wow, that woman is really strong. And then I realized that is you.
Yeah.
You are that woman. So I think it's really hit home in the choices I've made, in the love that I've tried to meet my challengers and challenges with, and my ability to step forward, to be brave, and to walk through some really tough stuff that, some others may have just sat back and said, hey, I'm going to sit this one out. I think
Yep.
I'm very determined in this go around, Shauna. I don't
Yes.
want to leave anything on the table.
I love that. Well, and I'm the same way, which is why I'm sure we were drawn to speak to one another because I resonate with a lot of what you've shared so far. I think we don't often stop to give ourselves credit for what, like, we're not conditioned to do that, right? We're not conditioned to say, hey, good job, you did that thing. I like to remind people that you have 100% track record of being successful getting through difficult situations. Like you've survived each of them. And I think when we take time to say, oh my gosh, I'm so strong, I did that, how courageous, it's, I don't know, it's a skill that needs practicing for a lot of people. So I'm glad to see that that was your answer to the story, to the question.
It's really fun to be having this conversation with you, Shauna, because you're quite insightful. Your listeners are really lucky.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Listen, I just share what I've learned. That is it. So, one of the things we talk about a lot on this show is kind of lessons learned. And so, when you look back on your journey, do you see a common theme in each of your lessons?
That's a really good question and not a question that I've received thus far. So I really, really appreciate it. The common theme would be stepping up and into my power. And I held that knowing back for so long. I did not have a lot of self-worth and esteem, even though from the outside in, I looked incredibly accomplished and very brave. I didn't feel that. I felt like I was quaking inside and I was codependent. And I saw through this book and writing it how that followed me until I met my perfect storm and one of my greatest gurus, as in the word teacher. And that would be my ex husband.
Mhm. Well, and I saw that in your bio, so it definitely had me curious. I don't know in all of the women I've spoke to, talking about their ex-husbands, I don't know that anyone has ever referred to them as their greatest guru. And obviously, I'm curious. Was it from a perspective of you just learned so much from him through the experience of knowing him, or was he really kind of embodying this guru aspect of a person or a guide?
It was a teaching. I think as I mentioned, I was really codependent. I mean, since second grade and Billy Fritz on the playground, I always had some attention of some male, and God forbid a relationship would be floundering. I'd be desperate to set up the next one before the
Mm.
other one hit bottom. So that was a patterning that my ex-husband helped me to break, because I was flattened, I was drained, the marriage was well past the expiration date. I was trying to bring integrity into the partnership, and it would not come. And I went through an excruciating experience that you can read in the book, because there is triumph. And ultimately, I learned through that experience, which seemed incredibly unjust, that it was actually the universe doing for me what I could not do for myself. And being able to step up and walk through a year of agony helped me learn not only my power, but my light and my beauty and my
Mm.
value and my self-worth from the inside out, for what perhaps may have been the first time in my life. And that's why my ex-husband is my greatest teacher.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. First of all, I have to commend you that most people cannot see the value in situations that bring them pain. So the fact that you can kind of land on a story that is so beautiful and honors him and your relationship with him in a way that is, I don't know how to say it any other way. Like, it's just beautiful the way that you've said that, when I know without knowing that there was trauma and heartbreak and how much hard shit there was behind that. So I have to commend you, because that is amazing to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, Sean, I have, some of the trauma that I experienced in childhood, I see as actual initiations, almost like a spiritual initiation. And I was playing with my sister. We were playing with little kittles, and I stole her little kittle. And we had a trunk with a votive candle lit behind us. And she's like, "Give me that little kittle back." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to give it back. Give it back." No. And she pushed my head back, and my hair caught on fire.
Oh my goodness.
I put it out, obviously, but that showed me in adulthood that I was going to light people's hair on fire with the way that
Mm.
I chose to perceive things, particularly my challenges and my challengers. I am here for soul evolution, and my walk has been perfectly choreographed.
Mhm.
And once I could really accept that to the depths of my being, my life changed. And I was truly living in a place of freedom. And that's
Oh,
my
yes.
prayer for this book and for my mission.
I love that. So, so true that the universe will do for us what we will not do for ourselves. That we get what we need and what I believe our souls are calling us to and through. And so I have definitely felt that was true for my life and seen it play out in others' lives. But I think that was amazing that you could also see that, can't even tell you how many times I've had conversations with people who are like, I would have never chosen this for myself. And yet knowing your soul did choose that for yourself, because it is for your growth and evolution. And it prepares you for the next thing to come.
I am totally with you. I used to think I was full of Southern California hooey thinking that way, but now that I live in rural Montana, I know I don't, and especially
Yes.
hearing it out of your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this Texas girl believes the same thing. Well, so when you look back to the younger you who hadn't yet gained all of the wisdom you have now, what advice would you give her?
Hold on. You have value. You have worth. You have purpose. And your voyage will be recognized, as will you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Know your value is the one that comes up again and again. And the whole sentiment of just hang on, it's going to be okay is there in a lot of the answers I hear to that question as well. I love that. Well, so when you look forward at like what's next for your book and you personally, professionally, what do you now believe is possible for your own life?
I'm really hoping to begin to work with groups, with large groups of people. I'm successfully working one to one, but I'm really charged up to help others on a mass scale. So that's what I'm envisioning and dreaming because I believe there are many of us carrying big bags of weight on our backs that don't belong in the picture any longer. And we're holding ourselves back in a place of pain. Why wait to do life review till we get to the other side? Do it
It's
now.
true. It's true. And I love that this is coming out in your story because it's been coming up a lot for me personally. This idea of our healing journey is not just about us and what we've experienced in this lifetime. We're healing on behalf of generations before us. And this whole idea of breaking patterns and um, really being the person of change is what healing is about, and it's coming through more and more with everyone that I'm speaking to. There's this idea of stopping the patterns and truly healing for the sake of you and everyone who comes after you, as well as the generations before you. I just, that was very perfect. That worked its way into the conversation.
I think it's there's a lot of angelic energy in the conversation today. I can't help but recognize it, and it just feels really lovely to speak with a host who's so open.
Oh, well, thank you. I would have to credit my angel team for that because we've spent quite a lot of time together today on purpose. So that does not surprise me that you said that. Yeah, because I think in my journey I have spent a lot of time realizing how much my team has been with me the whole time and how supported we are in whatever it is that we're being called to do. So thank you for recognizing that. I love that. So let me just ask you a little bit more about your process to write the book because we didn't talk a whole lot about that. You mentioned the whole 15 minutes a day, but when you look back at this journey of writing the book, I could so resonate to the hearing the you should write a book, you've got a book in you, and avoiding that for a long, long time because I also did the same thing. The idea of writing a book about divorce after my third divorce, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm not doing that. And that's the book I wrote. So, what do you think is the most surprising thing about the process for you?
Well, the most surprising thing is that it's actually now a 3D product. Like I occasionally look at the hard copy of the book and I was like, how did that happen? But
Yes.
while I was going through the process, it was a bit grueling. And while I think that was a good process for the first book, I'm hoping that if there is a second book, indeed, that I can do it more from my heart and go to the computer or whatever the recorder when I really want to from a place of joy. Oh, this is going to be fun.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
maybe it was because of the content of the book
Yeah.
was so close and so taboo and filled with toxicity and
Yep.
filled with some really poignant moments. I'm not sure, but that's what I'm hoping, that I can go more because I really want to, and I'm coming from a place of joy in doing
Yes.
it.
Yes. Well, I will say, so I'm writing another book now that I I don't know when this book is going to be done. I've been talking about it all year, on purpose to have people kind of hold me accountable. But I wrote a novel and then I wrote my first self-help book. And nonfiction was such a different process for me. And it felt more like work. When I wrote my novel, it was pure fiction. I would wait for creative inspiration to hit. It took a lot longer, but I was waiting to have those flow moments before I would sit down and really and flow is the perfect way to describe that because it would just flow out of me, or through me, I should say. And so this next book that I'm writing, which is a much easier topic to talk about, it's nonfiction. It's kind of been a combination of the two, to be honest. And so it is a little bit more, it's less regimented and it's less homework feel to it. And there is a little bit of creativity that's coming in that didn't necessarily come in with the divorce topic. But I think that's interesting that you have set that intention for your next book. I think intention is everything, and we get what we expect. So I'm excited to hear about your next book when you get there.
I'll let you know, and I can't wait to read your third one.
Yeah, it's well, and I should probably pursue publishing my novel, but honestly, I think the ending needs to change again, and I haven't been ready to tackle that just yet. But enough about me. So I have a lot of people listening who have a story in them and are at that point where they're hearing the nudge and they're not quite ready to take the leap. What advice would you give them?
Well, what I did was I started speaking into my little iPhone recorder, and we do each have a very specific story to write. So that helped me because I would just go to the recorder and start telling a story like I was telling, my grandma on the porch or something. So it's a creative way to sort of get the juices going. And it actually helped me because some of those recordings I actually lifted literally and put them right into the manuscript because there's so many judgments, right, that come up. And it's like that Nike commercial. You just got to do it at some point
Yes.
and let go of the judgment and try to come from a place of fun. You can ask your team for help before you sit down. If you
Right.
want to, you can ask, the soul come through me and speak to me and come out on this computer or this paper or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, those are some of the tools that really helped me get started.
That's excellent advice. I didn't necessarily do that for myself, but I definitely did that when it came to taking notes. So I would be in the car rider pickup line to get my kids from school and have an idea. And I was like, oh, I don't want to lose that idea. And so I would just, voice to memo the note. And that was a great way just to keep it moving and to, also, I find that's really just a helpful tactic when we have ideas floating around. When I have moments of insomnia and they're just running, I will write it down because then it lets me kind of get it out of my head and relax enough to know that, okay, I'm not going to lose it. And now I can focus on something else. So that was good advice. So tell my listeners how they can find your book and how they can find you.
Oh, the book Toxic Family: Transforming Childhood Trauma into Adult Freedom is in all the noted places. Amazon's probably the easiest. And then if you feel moved to connect with me and want to have a conversation, I'm at susangold.us.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming to be on the show. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
As did I, Shauna. Thank you for what you're producing.
Did you like this episode or did you love it? Inquiring minds want to know. The best way to support this show is to subscribe and leave a review. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.